I have to say, you're right. The last 2 weeks have been, let's just say it's something that if I went my whole 12 years with not seeing it, wouldn't have hurt my feelings any. But with what I saw down there with the teacher walkout and across the board, all the teachers, Carl and I are blessed.
Amen.
Because our teachers, when they came and talked to us, they were nice, they were respectful. We just have good people up here. I walked by senators' offices that they had teachers in there accosting them in their face, yelling at them, and we're blessed that we just have good people up here. My EA that I hired was shocked that I give my cell phone number out to everyone. She goes, you're crazy for doing that. I go, well, my people, when they call me, it's because they have a legitimate problem. They don't call me all the time. It's when they have a legitimate problem they call me. So, I don't have a problem giving my cell phone out to everyone. But with that being said, it's it's something that we needed to take care of, and I told this to a lot of teachers. I came in 3 years ago in 14, and we had, $611 million hole in the budget, and the next year $1.3 billion hole in the budget, and then last year $868 million hole in the budget. And all we have been doing since I've been there is baling wire fences together. And I don't know how many ranchers we have in here, probably quite a few. What happens when you just keep baling wire that fence together? Pretty soon you're not holding anything in. It's just you've got a fence that's falling down. And what we were able to do this year is we've set the corner post. We've set the corner post to start rebuilding our education system. And I think it's a good start. But, as far as what the OEA was wanting, I think it was $1.5 billion was their first initial ask. We couldn't have got that done. I tell my wife all the time, I said, you know how you eat an elephant, don't you? It's one bite at a time. And that's what we've got to do to start fixing it. And it's across the board with everything, because we've cut every agency. Higher ed, we've cut 27%. Is that right, Steve? About 27% the last 3 or 4 years?
The last 3 years, 60 out of every dollar cut in the state budget, 60 cents came from higher ed.
So, you can't stand at the Capitol and throw a rock at an agency and not hit something that we haven't cut. So this year, with $800 million more coming into our budget than we had last year, not counting our revenue package that we just did, our budget, we are actually able to start giving these agencies some money back and growing. So I'm optimistic, and I think our economy is going to keep growing. A lot of good things are happening. And it's not just the economy, it's a lot of things that we've done in those bad years. It felt like we wasn't getting anything done, but if you looked back and saw what we were getting done, we're getting paid for it this year. I was, on this package that we just passed, I was getting beat up because we raised taxes and voted for raising taxes. And I had one individual send me an email, and I won't use some of the words he used, but he was not happy. But I said, I responded back to him. I said, well, do you own an oil company? No. Well, your taxes probably didn't go up. Do you smoke? No. Well, your taxes did not go up. Now on the diesel and gas tax, and I explained it to him like this in my email. I said, before I got elected, when I was just running cows in Felt, Oklahoma, I would put on about 50,000 miles a year. And that's checking cows, it's going to town, getting feed, just running my ranch, about 50,000 miles a year. If you figure 16 miles a gallon, 3 cents a gallon, it was going to cost me $1.81 a week. Yeah, $1.81 a week more. $93 a year more because of this tax raise. And I put in that email, I said, do you know I buy more blue and gold sausage every year supporting my school than this tax is costing? We've got, as citizens of Oklahoma, we've got to decide what is our education worth in this state. I think it's time that we start deciding what we want. And I think with the Colburn effect, and that's what we're calling it, it's Senator Colburn's tax initiative to do away with this. It's going to be up to the voters. And I think, you know, Carl and I both, we represent the voters, and we will abide by what they say. That's going to come down probably in November if they get that put on the ballot. And but I think the voters are going to understand our roads are bad. Our education needs addressed. But at the end of the day, it's going to be what the voters say. But during this time, I understood, and Carl kind of touched on it, I understood why, when you get to northwest Oklahoma and you just keep going west, why people hate paying taxes, hate taxes going up. I can tell you exactly why. It is because we don't see the services those taxes should be paying for. We get shorted on the services that our taxes should be paid for. That's why we hate paying taxes. When I'm sitting in Felt, Oklahoma, I pay the exact same tax rate as someone in Oklahoma City pays. But do I get the same services as that person in Oklahoma City? I'll go drive on some of our roads. The health department in Cimarron County is open 1 day a week. They laid health department people off in Guyman. Laid one off in Laverne. They are, when they start cutting, they cut us first. And that goes through my mind. You know, like I said, I hate raising taxes, but that goes through my mind. I know when cuts are coming, they cut us first. They cut us first. I'm worried about rural hospitals. I'm worried about our schools. I'm worried about our roads and bridges because they cut us first. And I just wanted to say that so you understand what's going through my mind when I have to make these votes. And it makes me sick to my stomach to have to vote to raise taxes. I don't believe in them. But I do believe in health care. I do believe in public safety. And that's our responsibility. With that being said, the win, GPT, I can give you my, GPT on win, I can give you my thoughts on that, what scares me. Carl hit on it. But right now, if you, and you hear a lot of effective rate. You know, what is our effective GPT rate in Oklahoma? And I can tell you, Carl, I can tell you, every lobbyist that walks into your office has a different set of numbers. They sharpen that pencil up, and their numbers say something totally different than the lobbyist that came into your office 5 minutes before talking about the same issue. I think the effective GPT rate on oil and gas, and this is just going through all the numbers and kind of cleaning all the mud around and trying to find what is the legitimate GPT. I think the effective rate, GPT rate Oklahoma's was paying was 5.3 prior to what we did a couple weeks ago. What we did a couple weeks ago raised it 3 points, so they're paying, in my mind, 8.3 effective rate GPT, and that's all of their tax burden and the cost of their taxes to pull that oil out of the ground, and that's ad valorem, that's all of it. And so this moved them up to 8.3. I think Texas' effective rate is 7.9. We didn't just blow it out of the water raising the taxes on oil. We kind of kept it right with what Texas is, and I always hate referring to Texas, and we've got to keep up with Texas. But anyway, that's where we're at. Well, On wind, if you figure effective rate GPT on wind, right now what they're paying is 10.7. They're twice what oil and gas was paying. If we put a GPT on top of that, and that's what they're talking about doing, and this 1 megawatt, $1 a megawatt hour GPT rate, that's going to move them to 17% effective rate on GPT. Now, back to my philosophy of why I'm going to fight this GPT so hard. When Oklahoma is not in a crisis mode, and that's all I've seen since I've been there, we've been in a crisis mode. And like I said, we are coming out of this. We're growing, our economy's growing, things are looking up. But when we are not in crisis mode, what I see happening politically is the wind companies are going to come back to the table and say, look, our effective GPT rate is 17%. We need a little relief. We're wanting to build more wind turbines because this is going to stop projects. But they're going to come back to the table. We'll come back to your state if you give us some relief. Now the powers to be in that capital down there, when they start talking about relief, what kind of relief are they going to give them? They're not going to give them the relief that's going to affect the dollars flowing into Oklahoma City. They're going to give them the relief in the dollars flowing into the counties. They're going to give them ad valorem exemptions. And that is the #1 reason I've been a wind supporter, is because I've seen what it's been doing for our counties, for our schools. When I sat on the board at Felt, Oklahoma, and I saw them building wind farms in Fort Supply, in Falco, and I saw how those schools flourished. I mean, I was wanting wind turbines for Felt, Oklahoma, because, Felt's just struggling. We needed something. That's why I'm a wind supporter. And if they start making deals, I see the powers to be in Oklahoma City giving relief in ad valorem and keeping the GPT on. And so our counties lose out. That's why I'm going to fight it, as hard as I'm going to fight it. I'm going to switch over. I don't know where we're at on time. I'm going to talk a little bit about the fires shortly, and then you can come up, Earl. I did not have time to check the update this morning. This is yesterday's update. We did, for the first time in Oklahoma's history, the National Guard has troops on the ground helping with the fires. They've sent their hippos out. They're delivering water to the firefighters. As of yesterday they delivered 32,000 gallons out, and the fire trucks are filling up out of these hippos. And the National Guard's on the ground. That's the first time in history they've had to deploy National Guard to a fire, and they actually have people on the ground. They do have Blackhawks on standby around, and those are going to be just in case firefighters get caught behind the line and need to be evacuated out. So we're working on, my wife is a genius. She is a marketing genius. So we toured the fire Sunday coming back down, and we were talking because we need to, when you post on Facebook, you need to hashtag these news organizations. We need to get national coverage on this, and it'll help raise money for these fire departments. So I started hashtagging them, and she started hashtagging them, and she actually, I think Good Morning America picked it up yesterday morning. They had a deal, and she called me yesterday or the day before. I can't. All my days at the Capitol run together. I just get up and go to work. I don't know what day it is, but she had contacted these fire departments and said, if you set up a GoFundMe account, that will make it a lot easier for people to donate to your fire department. So she's been a trooper, and I know Taloga's fire department has set it up, a GoFundMe account. But we're at close to 300,000 acres that's burned. Senator Inhofe last year, with the fires that we had last year, had ran federal legislation. One problem we have is dealing with FEMA, and FEMA's main concern is urban America, and they kind of want to start talking about disasters in how many homes was destroyed, how many families it hurt, You know, last year, I think that fire got 4 homes, but it got $50 million worth of fencing. They don't understand that, you know, there may not be any homes out there, but it's somebody's business. And so Inhofe ran this legislation, and I guess we're gonna get it tested this year. I hate that, but Sunday when I stopped in Tologa and visited with the fire department, I think Sunday they were at 60 homes that were lost. And I don't know what we've lost this week. I know Tuesday was a horrible day fighting this fire, and it moved into some new areas. So I don't know right now today where we're at with homes. But I talked to Woodward's emergency management guy, and he thinks we're getting close to that 100. Yes, ma'am.
When they were talking last weekend that it was not going to be able to be put out until this Friday, will that mean that next time that they'll send the National Guard out quicker, or send the tanks? Because it's been, 30,000 head of cattle that have died.
I don't think that number's accurate. I talked to the cattleman yesterday, night before last, and I asked him what the count goes. Well, that news story that came out that said 30,000, he goes, he didn't think that was accurate. They hadn't got a good count on them yet. But you're right, and 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, they had a fire at the Black Mesa, and a wildfire, and I was on the phone calling, you know, getting support. And one thing I found out as far as getting support, that fire chief that's in command of that fire, he has to be the one that makes that call. So to get the National Guard, I think that would be the director of forestry that has to make that call. I would hope that if there's a reason whenever I get stopped and that highway patrolman says, "What are you doing, run into a fire?" We need all hands on deck when because this is springtime in Oklahoma, that wind's gonna blow 70 miles an hour. Let's get it out before we hit those days. But I
think that was part of the problem, is that you couldn't deploy those troops. The fire departments couldn't even do their normal tactics because the wind was so strong and the heat was so hot ahead of that, and that, you know, that Butler, their truck stalled because it just couldn't get there. But I mean, the winds were so strong, there wasn't.
Right, there were several days.
There was anything man could do to stop it.
There were several days in this fire, they couldn't do anything. It was blowing too hard. They could try to save houses. But as far as trying to stop the fire, it wasn't gonna happen. And I had a lady call me the other day, and she asked, you know, why don't we have more National Guard out there? You know, I've seen them, but we don't have a whole bunch of troops out there. Well, the National Guard only have so many that's trained in fighting fires. And I said, as bad as this fire is, they're not going to deploy troops and put them in harm's way if they're not trained on how to fight this fire. They have deployed the ones that know how to fight the fires. And I'll take questions. I think that's about it. If I missed anything, maybe it'll come up in a question.
I talked to a lady yesterday from Hooker, and she said, "Why don't we sell the school land?" Have you heard that proposal?
Oh yeah, I have. So the school land, Kansas did that. You know, and are y'all familiar in why we have school land in the state? Are y'all aware? Most of you, if you're not, I can explain. You want me to explain?
Yeah.
Okay, so whenever the United States started taking in western states and bringing them into the Union, the president said, you know, we want you to designate 2 sections per township as school land because we want you to have education in these western states. And that money coming from the school land is going to be to build schools and fund education, higher ed and common ed. You need to have state colleges, you need to have schools. And so Kansas, and I can't remember when they did this, but they sold all their school land. And they went out and built schools, and this had been, I want to say, in the 20s or 30s. Well, they've gone through a consolidation. There's a lot of those schools that are not schools anymore. It's just sitting out there. But Kansas does not have any more school land. They sold it all. They're not getting any more revenue off of it. Our School Land Commission, CLO, Commission's Land Office, has about $2 billion and growing. And that's through investment, that's through leases. They've got 1.6 million in cash and about 600 million that's invested just in stocks. I mean, so their money's growing. And our schools are getting a dividend off of that every year. I think last year was $118 million they put into education. Is that right? Steve, do you know the number?
Maybe a little bit more than that, actually.
So that's every year. And so the school lands are producing revenue for the schools. The issue I have living in Cimarron County against selling that school land, Cimarron County has 296,000 acres.
Can I point out they're a little slower out there in Cimarron County and everyone else, they have to put more schools out there?
Oh, I can get in the argument why it's out there. It's because those people in Kingfisher County didn't want that good black dirt, just the state owning it, so they traded it for land out there, but sitting out there, that rock hill. But in Cimarron County, 236,000 acres. 20% of the county is school land. Kind of one block up Black Mesa country. What worries me about putting it up for auction, just selling it all, right now the majority of that land is leased by Cimarron County residents. You put it up for sale, what worries me is you have a Ted Turner or someone like that comes in and they're able to buy these big blocks of land. They're not a resident. They're an absentee landowner. They're not buying their groceries at the grocery store. They're not buying their feed at the local feed store. They're big enough, they buy it straight from the company. And that's what worries me about selling it, is the local guy that's leasing it, when it goes up to auction, that he won't be able to lease it. So that's my perception on what happens if we sell it.
That would be my perception too, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And school land money can only be used for certain things, primarily capital projects.
Right.
At universities, what we use to replace roofs, to buy, to repair buildings and things. It can't be used for general operating expenses.
So one thing I want to do is I want to run a bill that if you lease school land, you get a free parking pass at OSU.
That'll be cheap.
Just because parking's so easy there. Any other questions?
Yeah, he's going to say it.
Oh, and OU, if there's OU.
Thank you.
Okay, and OU, sorry.
And Northwest.
And Northwest.
We don't charge what they do for parking.
Any questions? Surely we didn't get everything.
I've always wondered about the Indian property, whether the state gets any taxes or any income off of that.
No. So the only income that we get is from the casinos, and we get about 120 million a year off of the casinos, and then 88% of that goes to education. Is designated to go to education, 88% of the 120 million. But no, we don't, they are a sovereign nation, and
Can you audit then what we should be getting?
no. And that is the compacts. That's why this next governor's race is so important, because we're going to renegotiate the compacts in 2020. In the last compacts, for some reason we can't audit what they're sending us as far as their casinos. And I made the comment I don't understand why we said we weren't going to audit them, because it'd be kind of like the IRS said, we're not ever going to come audit you. We can't audit you. Just send us what you think you owe us. kind of wreck would we be in then? So yeah, we can't audit, that's part of the contract, or compacts, we can't audit them. So when we renegotiate these compacts in 2020, I hope that the next governor will get an audit power in there that we can come in and look at their books.
That was one of the reasons I voted against the ball and dice. There's a ball and dice bill right now. If they pay roulette, they can't pay it with a ball. And if they have a craps table, they have to play with cards. All has to be played with cards or electronically. And so what we gave them brought in 23 million,
Yeah.
is that right? 23 million. But I guarantee you, when that compact comes around, you'd like to have all the cards in your hands when you're negotiating with somebody, if you don't have anything to give them. The only big thing we've got to give them right now is to let them do sports booking. And so that's the only thing we've got left. And because if they have to agree to everything, we don't have a upper hand on them when we come to these negotiations. It's whatever they agree to. And so it gets to be more difficult. That's why I wanted to keep that back, because I'd like to have something more they wanted. Because I think it's worth twice that much, at least, in a compact.
And I may be misunderstanding, but their retail shops, their smoke shops, and their other businesses, are they exempt from collecting sales and submitting sales?
They collect sales tax, so they charge tax just like, say you have a smoke shop here and across the street you have Frank Morgan's convenience store. They charge the same sales tax, but we have to rebate that back to them. They collect it, but we have to give it back to them because they're a sovereign nation. But in the compacts, that was put in so that competition is equal. But we give that money back to them.
So it's not.
Well, they make the profit, but as far as you going to buy a pack of cigarettes, you're still paying taxes.
They can voluntarily not take that back if they want to.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen.
Okay, I'm going to give a history lesson. I'm a retired teacher. It goes back to your American history class. I can't think of the court case, but the state cannot tax federal property. All Indian nations or their sovereignty is protected as federal property. You may legally own it as a federal citizen, but they get to administrate it. So
What I worry about is tribes being in a position and then going ahead and purchasing property, and then are those same compact laws applicable to the purchased property as they were to the granted?
So the way I understand, because we went through this out in Texas County, we're still kind of going through it. They bought property out there. They had to, and the BIA has to allow this to happen, they have to put it into their trust. And until they put it into their trust, it'd be like anybody having property. But when it goes in the trust, then it becomes
part of their nation.
part of their nation.
Can I make one little point? I just found this out this last weekend. Interesting point. They're federal land, right? They're not part of the state of Oklahoma. Guess what? If medical marijuana gets passed, they can't do it in Indian land. At least that's the case in New Mexico. So I just thought that was interesting, because it's not a federally approved substance. So.
But then the tribe can go ahead and approve it. At least they have in Arizona with the Navajo Nation. So.
They probably have there may be a big fight with the feds, because I know that's why in Colorado all those pot shops deal with cash because of the federal banking laws.
Yeah.
Troy and I are wondering about tribal license tags. Does the state receive any?
No.
You're shaking your
No.
head, no.
Just enough to cover the cost.
Do they take care of their own roads then?
They do get federal dollars for roads, yeah. If they do that. But your license,
On our roads too.
but your license plates, that money really doesn't go to roads.
Yeah.
It's, goes to other things. I think education
It
gets
should,
part of,
like Texas does. You can compare to Texas.
What percent of Oklahoma is Indian?
At least a third.
yeah, at least a third.
At least a third. Believe me, the tribes are powerful.
They are, they are. One thing I want to bring up, and I'm kind of shifting gears here, is the capital gains tax that we've been hearing a lot about. Right now, we're not going to hear capital gains tax. And I'm thoroughly opposed to that because, I mean, it affects farmers and ranchers across the board. It doesn't matter what size you are, it's going to affect you. And so, as of today, the capital gains tax is not going to be heard, and we're not going to be looking at that at all.
Okay, this is going back to the wind energy,
Okay?
and this may be part of what you already covered. I just want to clarify. I heard something on the news last night, and I didn't hear the whole story, but what I did hear, they were wanting to do away with the wind companies paying ad valorem taxes and paying another way.
That's the GBT. That was the GBT we
Okay, so
talked
you
about.
guys are definitely not for that.
No, that's,
Okay, I just wanted to
I
clarify
mean,
that.
okay, if this wind project comes through Winoka, I think 2/3, 3/4 of it's in Woods County. And all that money stays, majority of that money stays in the county, which helps our area. You put a GBT, half of it goes to the state, everywhere, and the other half stays here in the county. And so that's the way they've got it drawn up right now. I haven't seen the bill. It's supposed to be knocking on our door on Monday, but I haven't seen the official draft yet. But that was an amendment to 888 that they added late to make it a GBT. It was the way I had it broken down. But in other words, you're giving half of it away. So.
no, and that's, I've had some very heated conversations with people down there that says, well, we don't, and it came from a representative, I'm not going to say who it was, but I think you probably know.
Yep.
They just don't understand why only 64 schools in the state of Oklahoma benefit from the wind. I said, well, I can tell you, Felt, Oklahoma doesn't benefit from Devon Towers. Doesn't benefit from that Google factory in Pryor. Google Center. We finally get some growth out here, some investment, diversifying our economy to be, something besides oil and gas and agriculture. And they want to get their fingers on it. I will fight to the death on that one. Because that's one of the main reasons I ran. We send dollars to Oklahoma City, we get pennies back. That's not okay with me.
And part of the school, I mean, what's interesting in southeast Oklahoma, the evaluations of their county and their properties, they haven't updated their evaluations in a long time. So unless that county assessor evaluates the property at a true amount, that's a decreased amount of money that goes into their county, which also goes back into the state, which also goes into the educational funding and stuff like that. And so they're hurting us as much as anything because they're not evaluating their property at the same level. I mean, our assessors try to give a true value of our worth in our area.
I want to change subject. How do you two feel about the prison reform and trying to reduce the number of prisoners in our system since we leave the world and the number of incarcerated women?
My philosophy on that, I think a person's responsible for their actions. And I think we can look at different offenses, but I'm trying to think what bill it was ran this year to start releasing them at 60.
Percent?
No, at 60 years old.
Oh.
What was that
I
bill?
don't remember, but yeah.
Babbitt ran it on the House side, Shaw ran it on the Senate side. But I guess on that, I'm 47 years old. I'm almost 60. That's not old to me. I think if you did a crime, if you broke the law, you should be punished.
There are some things that we need to do to work on that, and that we are working on that on the House side. Some of the governor's reforms we're working on. Some are not always agreeable to everybody, but we're trying to wade through and see what's right. Because, yeah, he is correct, we keep more women than any other prison. And sometimes we need to be a little more responsible about, we can't afford, this is Hickman, we can't afford to put up everyone we're mad at. We just need to put up the ones we're afraid of that will really harm us. So they are working in some of those areas, but not everybody has a palate for all the things that they're wanting to do, and so it's going through that process of finding what's right. And so that's what's going on right now. But I know we've got, I think in the House we still have 2 that are on conference committee, 2 bills that will deal with prison reform.
Then we passed 4 of them off the Senate floor Wednesday.
So.
In response to that, being on the prison advisory board, Todd is a member of the corrections board, and he had told us, Lynn, that they had jobs, they had found jobs for every one of the people that were going to be let out early, when it like 1,400 or something, and it only ended up with just, a fraction of that. But they found jobs for the people. How long it would last, I don't know. But am I saying that correctly, Lynn?
Yeah, they put some restrictions on the qualifications, and from the 1,400 jobs they found, took it down to 2 dozen or something.
It was like 40 or 60 or something like
Very
that.
low numbers.
That they released, or the jobs?
It was sort of on a work release kind of thing.
But they found jobs for the people that were going to be released so that they could be a productive citizen, but I don't know it,
But if somebody put restrictions on it, it really killed it.
We are also trying to incorporate career check more into prisons, because like you said, they're more valuable if they have a skill or something like that. So I've been working with career tech on that to get them back involved more in that. And everything doesn't move at a rapid pace, but they are working on doing that, because that's better for them to come out with some kind of skill.
It's happening at Bill Johnson. We have a career tech program.
Well,
Thank you very much if you had a hand in that. And currently our recidivism rate is 38%, and statewide it's 80%. So we're doing some good at Bill Johnson Correctional Center.
Yeah, it is the shining star in the state of Oklahoma in the corrections.
And the nation.
Pardon?
And the nation.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for letting us come. And, it's always great. If you have any questions, I'll give you my cell phone too. I've got it right here. It's on my card, so I'll be happy to talk to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.